Hey, everybody, this is your host, Neva Gusak, 21st Century Longest. I hope you could hear me. Anybody who's listening, I hope you could hear me. I was just trying to do a live stream, and one of our really good listeners, 21st Century Longest, said that my voice was going in and out. So hopefully you'll be able to hear what I'm saying. I'm going to do another live stream here. I came across while I was doing a workout, I listen to different podcasts and music, and I even listen to movies and whatnot while I'm doing my workouts. So, what popped up on my phone was this labor roundtable with Bernie Sanders. There's much of things I support about Bernie Sanders, and there are other things I don't support. But much to my horror, I guess I'm not altogether surprised, but much to my horror, Sanders featured a dude by the name of Kent Wong. Let's talk about Kent Wong in just a moment. I'm going to get some more water because I'm doing a ton of talking here, so I'll be right back. So, Kent Wong is a little history about him. And Trevor Loudon, who's an anti-communist researcher, he's very good on uh, researching and discovering the ties that people on the left had for various communist parties and governments. Kent Wong was a member of the Communist Workers' Party, which was a Maoist Stalinist outfit. He also is now high up in the Democratic Socialists of America, which continues to move more and more and more with each passing year in a far left, basically communist direction. He's also a labor studies professor. He's an academic, so he's molding young minds of labor activists to essentially go against American interests. He has, for well over a decade, has participated in outreach with the fake labor and trade unions in the People's Republic of China and Vietnam. Like, for example, in China, the dummy union in China is known as the All China Federation of Trade Unions. They're tools of the Communist Party, essentially. And they're used in international propaganda. They're also used to keep Chinese labor in line. And the same with Vietnam. I think it's called the Confederation of Vietnamese Labor or something or another. So this guy is not a friend of the United States. And I came across this article which confirms that this guy is a commie bastard. That's basically the way to put it. This guy doesn't represent America's interest. So he wrote this article in Voices for New Democracy. Worker to Worker, Union to Union, Building U.S.-China Solidarity, dated March 10th, 2022. So this is recent, authored by Kent Wong. And this article will be published in the upcoming volume of the New Labor Forum. So he talks about his collaboration with the Chinese state trade unions, how he's brought delegations of the International Longshore and Warehouse Workers Union to China. He condemns the AFL-CIO for being anti-Asian and anti-Chinese, even when Chinese immigrants were being used by avaricious white American employers as cheap labor. And Wong thought it was a bad thing to restrict these workers from coming to the United States. And it's not even a matter that they're Chinese. Who cares? They were being used to undercut American labor. And that's where I have the issue with Wong. Wong has a huge issue with the AFL-CIO's anti-communism, its support for the embargo, which was a rather porous embargo against Cuba. Oh, it's great. Thanks so much, 21st Century Longest. Glad it's sounding great. It's going good. It's going good. Yeah, Kent Wong also support our efforts to oppose efforts to contain communism in Central America. He opposed sanctions on dumped Chinese goods. He even opposed efforts he actually supported China, read China's entry into the World Trade Organization, and obviously permanent normal trade relations with China, which was laid the groundwork for China to be admitted to the WTO. He was against any efforts to slap tariffs on dumped Chinese goods to ward off their currency manipulation, which, according to an article by Victor Riesel, who himself is a labor union guy, wrote an article in Human Events back in the early 1980s where they quoted Chinese officials as using currency manipulation as a means to dump communist Chinese textiles into the American market, thus killing American textile industries and thousands of American jobs. The AFL, he was upset that the AFL leadership also opposed the attendance of U.S. labor women at the International Women's Conference in Beijing in 1995. He was pissed that the Teamsters Union invited Pat Buchanan to speak in a united front against China. He said that they were wrong, that the efforts of labor anti-communism was wrong politically. They failed miserably. Well, no shit, because corporate America and Wall Street and the Communist Party of China are a pretty powerful force that can overcome the less politically powerful anti-communists like me. And he just talks about in this article how his forces in American labor were collaborating with Communist China and its fake unions since 2001. And that was through the Change to Win faction of the AFL-CIO, which are the communist traders within that organization. And you just read this article, he's loving the collaboration between the People's Republic of China and his communist allies within the American labor movement. Now, he rightfully blames American multinational corporations for the capital flight, the deindustrialization. Not wrong about that. But he exonerates China. And China has a role in that. Why? Because China wants a weaker industrial base in America. So, God forbid, if there's a Red Dawn operation with China and Russia, America is going to be a victim of its own greed, of its own corporations, which China encourages. I mean, remember, China is a communist country. They operate under the precepts of Lenin. When you read on Marxist.org, the debate on the foreign concessions with Lenin and the Bolsheviks, they talk about how to use the reactionary corporations in the West and the United States in particular to basically overthrow global capitalism through their greed. And communist leaders all over the world have talked about that have been in power, that are still in power in various countries like communist China. So he talks all about this. And when you read that article, it shows that American labor, unfortunately, has been penetrated by communism. Now, I'm a strong supporter of unions. I think unions need to take a much more militant position towards exploitative and un-American employers like Amazon, like Walmart, like Apple, like Starbucks, and the list goes on and on and on, where there are bad working conditions, where you have major corporations profiting while the workers are really not sharing at all, and they have to, in the case of Amazon workers, live in RVs or literally camps as homes. Or I was recently listening to a documentary was produced in Britain on how you have colony of Disney workers, hundreds, that live in hotels throughout the Orlando, Kissimmee area in Florida because they don't make enough wages because they've been hit by the COVID pandemic and the financial crisis of 2008, 2009. They haven't been able to find decent work for them and to support themselves and their families, so they have to live in hotels because they can't afford their decent apartments or nice houses anymore. So when these corporations, when the executives and the majority shareholders are profiting mightily and these workers are doing terribly, I'm with people like Kent Wong. I think the corporation, there needs to be militant action against these companies. But our anti-corporate capitalist stance should never be utilized to the advantage of communist geopolitical enemies that want to also smash American labor, that want to smash a strong United States, a strong independent United States. And people like Kent Wong are not our friends. Sure, there might be some surface agreement. I agree that American multinational corporations are to blame. The Chinese Communist Party is also to blame too as well. They want the technology, they want the political influence that they can wield through multinational corporations to influence decisions in Washington, D.C. No question about it. And that's where I'd strongly disagree and take exception with Wong. So Wong is some people like Kent Wong are labor leaders we cannot align ourselves with. He is a puppet of the People's Republic of China, and that is his goal. His goal is ultimately, in my opinion, to use labor's legitimate grievances to bring about a weakened United States and to bring American labor into a completely China-friendly, domestically communist direction. So leftists who are legitimately concerned about the conditions of the workers, you need to steer away from communists. It brings discredit to the labor movement, the cause of organized labor, and it also brings us into alliance with forces that have no problems inking alliances themselves with your quote class enemy, Wall Street and major reactionary anti-labor corporations, who are the biggest supporters of the legitimacy of communist China. So we have to be careful with that. Ideally, I would love to see a new labor movement develop, which is very strongly patriotic, which is anti-communist, but still is also anti-corporate capitalist as it currently is configured today. So that's my take. Look, I like to crap on the right and the establishment right in this. But when I also find disturbing information about people on the far left who are in alliance with our geopolitical enemies, that needs to be exposed to. Because remember, on this show, The Populist Patriot, or my ideology of radical civic nationalism, we are neither right nor left. We are not going to kiss the asses completely of either camp. We're going to find agreement, and we're also going to find disagreements. Things we like, things we don't like. And there's more to dislike and have real extreme concern with Kent Wong than there is to like with him and to appreciate for him about him. So again, labor people, stay away from the like of Kent Wong. Change to win. State trade unions in Vietnam and China. Bad news. Another Trojan horse that Beijing and Hanoi uses to undermine the United States to the advantage of our geopolitical enemies. Again, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much, 21st Century Longest, for listening, commenting. And I got a couple more live streams ahead of us.